Hey, I guess I better silence my phone. Okay. Hello and welcome to another one of BRJA's short takes. It's a quick chat that we have to discuss mainstream and pop culture through a racial lens. And per usual, I am here with Julia and with Michelle. And it is Black History Month. And so that means it's the time of the year that individuals, institutions, organizations, corporations rep Black history for 28 days and then go back to their anti-Blackness norms and act like nothing even happened. So before we start this conversation we're gonna have talking about the top 3 things that we dislike or hate about Black History Month, we're gonna pop it over to Julia to tell us our first one, which is also gonna include some great history in it. So Julia, you go first.
Right. So thank you. So you all know that every February, the United States celebrates Black History Month. And it's really awesome. It's a time to recognize all the contributions that Black folks have made to this country, which is something that we love to see. So Black History Month actually originally started in 1926 as Negro History Week by historian Carter G. Woodson. And so the aim of this actual week was to expand the public knowledge of Black people's contributions and the advancement of human civilization. So not just the United States, but human civilization as a whole. What have Black people done to push us forward? However, by the 1960s, the idea had kind of grown and then it evolved into what we know now as Black History Month, which is really, really awesome. However, one of my kind of, issues with this is that this history ends up getting lost. So in the middle of whether an organization is doing something in the events and all of the commercials with Black people, the actual history of our contributions sometimes gets lost in this kind of melee of like consumerism and all the, in the events and the pictures. And so it's really important for us to kind of regain focus on that. So for example, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, which was a group started by Carter G. Woodson. Every single Black history, they do a theme that Black folks should be focusing on, that all of us should be focusing on. So like this month, this year's theme was Black health and wellness. So that's one of the things that we could be focusing on in our communities, in our organizations, with our families, in order to really push our communities forward. So that's kind of what annoys me. We've lost the plot a little bit once we've opened it up.
How about you, Michelle?
Thank you, Julia, for giving us some of that background history. So one of the things that annoys me about Black History Month, as much as I love it and I love what it stands for, one of the things that does annoy me is the fact that because we live in a heavily capitalistic society, is that there becomes this emphasis on commodifying Black History Month, right? Like turning it into almost like a Valentine's Day, like a holiday where you're supposed to buy certain things and people feel pressure to buy certain things just because it has kente cloth on it. And so we see things like Target and Bath and Body Works rolling out these lines for Black History Month that are supposed to be representative of Black people. And it can sometimes feel offensive to some of us. It can feel a little demeaning. And then the focus also, when it's supposed to be about community, when it's supposed to be about uplifting Black people, and then the focus becomes on supporting these large corporations as opposed to supporting Black-owned businesses, it kind of feels like it's missing the true spirit of the holiday. And, I would love to see these corporations use their immense platforms during Black History Month, supporting things like voting rights or reparations. There are many things that they could be supporting that would have substantial, impactful change for the better of Black people, as opposed to, forcing us to buy another thing that we don't necessarily need.
So true. So true. Thanks, Michelle. And so mine is a combination of 2 things. One is first that it's always treated as an afterthought. We know that Black History Month is every February, but somehow every year people are like, oh my gosh, Black History Month is in 2 days. We got to do something. So it always feels like there's this afterthought that then creates this force of celebration that is put upon us as Black people that we don't get to celebrate it in the way that we want to, right? And so it still feels like there's an element of whiteness being centered in it, and the urgency of celebrating in the way that it's being celebrated. And I think we see that most in the workplace, where somebody will be like, oh, we need to do something for Black History Month. We need a statement. We need like a video. We need something incorporated to show that we're not racist and we support Black History Month. And we need our Black employees to say or do a thing, right? And then it then forces Black employees to be like, I can't celebrate the way that I want to. What I really want to say, or what I really want to do, is not going to be something that goes in our newsletter or something that goes on our website, right? And so it's then forcing Black folks to offer something that is palatable to white people, right? It's often talking about the same historical figures that we always hear about. It's then talking about what our reflection is about it. Oftentimes it does not push white people or push non-Black people to actually learn some of the history that they have not heard and hasn't been recycled over and over. So yeah, it's an afterthought. It is just not very genuine. And then also, we as Black folks figure out our way to celebrate Black History Month, right? And so if you were to ask us, and it goes back to the like, who is this for? Is it for us? Or is it for white people to feel centered and feel good, right? If all Black folks got together and said, you know what, for Black History Month, we would like the first week off, right? How that tone would change. Or for Black History Month, you know how you could honor it. And like you said, Michelle, like, let's do something and let's take an action towards voting rights or reparations. But instead, it needs to be this very surface level, very safe way that we coddle and emphasize the fragility of like white folks, and be like, oh, okay, it was a celebration because it was mentioned, and it was safe because we mentioned the people that were safe, which is not what anybody needs for Black History Month. Go ahead.
And I was like, and safe for them. And so I think that like safe to them, and that's the thing. Maybe the actual change that we have to make sure that we're doing is not to center them, because the education was supposed to be for us. That we know more than just like our MLKs and Rosa Parks, that we know who's doing the work in our community, who's doing the work in our churches and our homes. Are we doing the work? And then for us to be inspired and educated to move forward. And so honestly, I think it's like, it's not even about like white people or non-Black people. It's really about how we end up kind of being like forced into this like commodification, to this kind of capitalist celebration system. And then we have nothing for ourselves to kind of just be like, you know what, like I want to prep or celebrate this way. Because we're so tired out from like working and talking about it and being the center, person for that month or that week. And so I think that maybe it is, rethinking how we do celebrate. Like, what do we do? Who do we learn about? And it's not, and not censoring them, not worrying about them.
Anything else to add, Michelle?
No, I disagree with, with everything that you all said. And I think that what kind of keeps coming back to me from this conversation is about centering us as Black people, and also Black people taking more ownership of the month, and maybe being more intentional about how we see how this month should be spent, as opposed to how America sees it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a time and a place to also figure out and strategize the risk that you can take, right? And have talked to some friends that have been like, oh, I have to do this thing for Black history, and I'm also going to slip this in here, and I'm going to talk about the real history that I want to talk about, right?
Right.
And so it's also finding those opportunities in which there's the part in which we celebrate individually or with our community, and then sometimes this forces outwardness that we have to practice, but also realizing where there's a chance, where it's like, I can get a win in here, right, and celebrate this kind of like in a more authentic way that I want to.
It's what are you all doing to celebrate? Because I know that I'm in school, but what I have been doing is like rereading either like poetry or text, because that's kind of my thing. that kind of make me appreciate the work that has been done and the work that needs to be done. So that's one of the things that I'm doing this month. But I do that all year, y'all. But
That's
really
what I was gonna say.
focusing,
All year,
really focusing this
Black
month.
History Month, 24/7, 365.
Yep.
I definitely feel like it's an all year thing for me. And I've decided for this year to be reading more literature by Black women. So right now I'm reading Kindred by Octavia Butler. It's amazing. I highly recommend it, but that's what I'm doing for Black History Month all year.
Mine usually takes me to do some type of intergenerational like learning. And so that's usually what happens for me for Black History Month. I usually use MLK as kind of like my self-care kind of time. And this is like my learning that's kind of like incorporates not just my learning by myself, but learning with people that are different generations of me. And whether that is actually having a conversation or there's a documentary that I'm watching right now that has multiple perspectives in it and takes me to a place. I won't say what that is because that'll be a whole different conversation. But that's what I'm doing.
We gotta find out.
So anything else on this short take?
No, I mean, just make sure that however you celebrate Black History Month as a Black person, that is the proper way to celebrate. It does not have to be big, events. It doesn't have to be pictures. If it is that, that's fine, but make sure that you are doing it for yourself and your people and the right reasons. But however you choose to celebrate, just make sure that you are learning and growing, and taking in like what the aim of the holiday is supposed to be, so we can be better folks and better community and help folks out. That's all I can say.
Completely agree, Julia. And support your local Black-owned businesses.
Absolutely. And don't forget to follow us with Baltimore Racial Justice Action on our YouTube channel. You can also check out our other social media pages. We're Be More Anti-Racist via Twitter, and we're Baltimore Racial Justice on Instagram, Baltimore Racial Justice Action, like I said, YouTube and Facebook, and our website is bemoreantiracist.org. We will see you all next time for our next short takes.